Welcome to the deep dive. We're looking at NTPC Ltd, India's largest power generation company. A government enterprise. Sometimes government enterprises, they're not always the most exciting, but I think this one will be interesting.
I think so, too. It's going to be a good one. We're really diving deep into their financials.
Yeah.
Specifically, their performance for the quarter that ended September 30, 2024. And we're going straight to the source using their official company documents.
So, no funny business here. So to start off, what I found pretty interesting was NTPC announced their first interim dividend for this current financial year. And so investors, they're going to get 50 paise per share, which will be payable on November 18th. Now, 50 paise, it's not a whole lot.
Not a huge amount.
It's a good sign. I think it shows confidence in their future earnings.
It definitely shows they have faith in where they're going. And speaking of earnings, things get pretty interesting. Their standalone profit after tax for Q2 2024-25 is a pretty massive 648.87 crore, which is a pretty big jump from the same quarter last year, where it was only 885.01 crore.
That's a big increase. I'm curious, what do you think is driving that big increase in profit?
Well, there's a few things going on here. Obviously, India's economy is growing.
Yeah.
And as the economy grows, power demand increases as well. And on top of that, NTPC has been doing a lot of work to make their operations more efficient.
Okay.
Which, of course, helps their bottom line.
Interesting. Now, their consolidated profit, which includes their subsidiaries, is even higher at 5,318.525 crore. But I feel like there's a bit of an asterisk here.
Yes. We have to consider the impact of the regulatory deferral account balances.
Can you explain what that is?
Sure. So basically, these balances reflect adjustments that have to be made for things like capacity charges and energy charges that are still being negotiated with regulators. So these figures aren't final.
So it's like waiting for that final bill. You know it's coming, but you don't know their exact amount yet.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So yes, these profit numbers look really impressive right now, but it's important to remember that they could change.
Got it. Okay. So let's move on to revenue. NTPC is generating some serious cash.
Oh, yeah. Their standalone total income from operations for Q2 is a massive 327.56 crore. Yeah. And then if you add in the subsidiaries, the consolidated total income goes up to 696.30 crore.
All right. So those are some impressive numbers, but I want to move on to something that is potentially a bit more controversial. The Joshimath Hydro project. Remember all those land subsidence issues? That brought construction to a halt.
Yeah, a sensitive situation for sure.
Yeah.
So after being paused by a court order, construction resumed just recently in September 2024. NTPC claims the project didn't cost the subsidence, but people still have concerns, and I understand why. It's located in a very ecologically sensitive area up in the Himalayas. Any further environmental issues, even if they aren't related to the project, could put NTPC under a microscope.
Yeah. It's a tough situation for them. Now, something else that caught my eye was NTPC's decision to get into the coal mining business. They're creating a new subsidiary, NTPC Mining Limited, and this is creating a lot of debate.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Like, you have people who think it's a good idea and people who don't. On the one hand, you can see why they're doing it. If they control their own coal supply, they're protected from price swings.
Yeah.
And those supply chain disruptions that we've been seeing. And coal, as you know, is what they use to generate most of their power.
Right. Reliable fuel is essential, especially with India's energy needs growing so rapidly. But we can't ignore the fact that coal is a major contributor to climate change.
You're exactly right. And that's where the criticism comes in. People are questioning NTPC's commitment to a green future. I mean, they're investing a lot in renewables.
Like solar and wind.
Right. So it seems like they're trying to play both sides, securing fossil fuels while expanding into renewables.
Exactly. It's a delicate balancing act, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Okay, now let's talk about something that's a little messier, the legal battles.
Yes, always fun.
So let's start with the Inland Waterways Project, the one that didn't go so well.
Right. That was their attempt to move coal using rivers rather than relying on rail transport. But as you said, it didn't work out.
The operator sued NTPC.
Yeah, claiming the breach of contract.
And they took him to arbitration.
And I'm guessing that didn't go NTPC's way?
Not really. The tribunal actually sided with the operator and awarded them a pretty huge sum, 1,891.09 crore.
Ouch. That's the guy who got hurt.
Yeah. NTPC is appealing the ruling, so it's not over yet.
Yeah.
but it's a major financial issue hanging over them.
So on top of a failed project,
Yeah.
they might have to pay out almost 2,000 crore.
It's not ideal.
Not at all. Now, on top of that, there's another legal battle going on. This one involves their subsidiary, Ratnagiri Gas and Power Private Limited, or RGPPL for short. What's happening with that one? So in that case, RGPPL is fighting with the Maharashtra State Electricity Distribution Company Limited, or MSEDCL, over capacity charges, basically. It comes down to how they're interpreting the power purchase agreement, specifically regarding the use of liquefied natural gas, or RLNG.
And someone all the way to Supreme Court.
He did. And actually, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of RGPPL. They said that MSEDCL was misinterpreting the agreement and ordered them to pay up.
Okay. So you'd think that would be the end of it.
You would think so.
Yeah.
But it's not quite that simple. Collecting the money has been another legal challenge in itself.
Really?
Yeah. They've had appeals and interim applications.
Yeah.
And even with the Supreme Court ruling, it's been a long and drawn-out process.
So even a giant like NTPC isn't immune to these legal hurdles?
It seems not.
And it definitely adds another layer of complexity to their financial situation.
Absolutely. So we have strong financial performance, but also these legal challenges and this new move into coal mining, which some would consider controversial. A lot to unpack.
Yeah, it is. Definitely a mix of opportunities and risks.
That's a good way to put it.
And we'll be diving deeper into all of this in part 2 of our deep dive. So stay tuned. Things are about to get even more interesting.
Welcome back to our deep dive into NTPC. In part 1, we looked at their financials and some of the legal challenges they're facing. We also started talking about their move into coal mining. And I think it's worth spending a little more time on that.
Yeah, it's definitely a big decision with a lot of implications.
From a financial perspective, it seems like a good move. They'll have more control over their coal supply. Yeah. Which could protect them from price fluctuation.
Right, and those supply chain issues that have been causing problems for a lot of companies.
There's also the environmental side of things. Coal is a major contributor to climate change. And some people are saying that this move by NTPC is a step backwards.
Yeah, there's definitely a tension there between ensuring energy security and reducing their environmental impact.
It's like slur slay. They're trying to walk a tightrope.
A very delicate balancing act.
But it's going to be interesting to see how they manage it. They've made commitments to sustainability. Right. And they've invested heavily in renewables. Yeah. But this coal mining move seems to contradict that.
Yeah. It's going to be hard to convince people that they're serious about a clean energy future when they're also expanding their coal operations.
They're going to have to be very transparent about how they plan to mitigate the environmental impact.
Right. They need to show that they're not just talking about sustainability, they're actually doing something about it.
Exactly. Actions speak louder than words.
No. Let's shift gears back to those legal challenges. What's the latest on that inland waterways dispute?
Yeah, as we discussed. NTPC lost that arbitration case and was ordered to pay a pretty substantial sum to the operator.
Yeah. Over 1,891 crore. That's a lot of money.
It is. And it's not over yet. They're appealing the ruling.
So it's still a bit of a waiting game.
Exactly. But in the meantime, they've set aside funds to cover the potential interest on the award.
So they're being cautious.
Yeah. It's a prudent move, given the circumstances.
Okay, now, what about that case with their RGPPL subsidiary, the one with the capacity charges?
Ah, yes. That one's a bit complicated. But essentially, RGPPL was seeking capacity charges from MSEDCL based on their use of liquefied natural gas.
And MSEDCL disagreed.
Right. They argued that it was a breach of their power purchase agreement.
So it was a dispute over contract interpretation. Yeah. And it went all the way to the Supreme Court.
It did. And the Supreme Court actually sided with RGPPL.
They won.
They did. The court ordered MSEDCL to pay. But, as we often see in these cases, actually getting the money has been another hurdle.
So even with the Supreme Court ruling in their favor, it's not a guaranteed win.
Exactly. It's a good illustration of how complex the legal system can be. Yeah. Even when you have a favorable ruling.
It's a reminder that these legal battles can drag on for years.
And can have a significant impact on a company's finances.
Okay. So we've got coal mining ventures, legal battles, a push for renewable energy, it seems like. NTPC is juggling a lot right now.
They are. That's a lot to manage.
And it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
In the next part, we'll take a closer look at their overall financial health and try to assess their long-term prospects.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it. Welcome back to the deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground with NTPC, their financials, their legal issues, and their move into coal mining. So, what's the big picture here? Can NTPC overcome these challenges and continue to thrive?
Well, I think that's the question everyone's asking. Let's start with their financial health. Their debt-to-equity ratio is 1.43.
Okay. What does that tell us?
So that means for every $100 they've invested in the business, they've also borrowed 1.43.
I see.
It's a bit high. Not necessarily alarming, but it does show they're using a lot of debt to finance their growth.
So something to keep an eye on?
Definitely. Now, when we consider their strategic direction, things get even more interesting. This move into coal mining could be profitable in the short term, but it raises questions about their long-term commitment to clean energy.
Right. It's like they're trying to hedge their bets. They're securing their fossil fuel supply while also investing in renewables, like solar and wind.
It's a tough balancing act.
Yeah.
And it's not clear which way they'll ultimately lean.
So what do you think? Will they be able to pull it off?
I think it depends on a few things. First, they need to convince investors and the public that they're serious about sustainability.
Right.
They need to show that their coal mining operations will be done responsibly with minimal environmental impact.
And they need to navigate the regulatory environment.
Absolutely. India is tightening its environmental regulations and pushing for cleaner energy. So NTPC will need to adapt.
It's a challenging situation, but let's not forget, NTPC is a major player in the Indian power sector. They have a long history, a strong asset base, and the government support.
All important factors.
So, what's your final take? Is NTPC's future bright?
Honestly, it's hard to say for sure. They have a lot of strengths, but they also face some significant challenges. Their success will depend on how well they manage these competing priorities.
It's a complex story that reflects the broader energy transition happening around the world. And it'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
We'll be keeping a close eye on it, for sure.
And we encourage our listeners to do the same. You can find more information about NTPC on their website. Website address here, they have details about their operations, their financials, and their sustainability initiatives. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of NTPC.
It's been a pleasure.
And remember, the energy landscape is constantly changing, so stay informed, stay curious, and keep diving deep.